What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you. Well, I don't know if happy is the right word. It is a Skews Day. It's May 3rd, 2022. I'm Trey, and that's Mark, and this is Weekly Skews. Going to do things a little bit differently tonight. Later on, we will have a guest. She's a congressional candidate for Tennessee's 7th District, Odessa Kelly, will be joining us later. Along the way, we'll attempt to lighten the mood at least a little bit with some dumbasses, but the news of this particular day feels like one of those things you just kind of jump right into, wouldn't you say, Mark?
Yeah, I was thinking about today's show yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, what are we going to talk about?" It doesn't appear to be anything earth-shattering going on, but luckily our hellscape fucking delivers.
Earth was indeed shattered. Last night's when it came out, right? It was leaked. Article in Politico announcing that it would appear that Supreme Court set to overturn the landmark abortion reproductive rights case Roe v. Wade, based on a draft opinion written by Sam Alito, which is pretty straightforward. I feel like the terminology, like he makes it pretty clear where he stands, at least.
It is. Look, Supreme Court opinions are usually like obscurantist and like nerdy, and they hide their emotional motivations behind, quoting from 1742. This is one of the most strident, belligerent. This could have been like a comment on a Breitbart post, or like from a Reddit forum on men's rights or some shit. It's fucking unhinged batshit lunacy. I mean, like on Friday's Patriot episode, we talked about the guy who set himself on fire on the steps of the Supreme Court to protest climate change, and we're like, that, in my head, I was like, that's got to be the bleakest Supreme Court story we're going to talk about for a while. Turns out, not so much. If you guys haven't read it, it's 67 pages, not counting the 30 pages of footnotes, but like. The interesting thing about this being a rough draft is you can see how the justices sort of vent their spleen, and then the clerks are left to sort of try to backfill the legal reasoning for it. The whole idea that these are guys calling balls and strikes, we've talked about this a lot before, but it's fucking, if you still believe that yesterday, you should not believe that today, because this opinion is absolutely full of shit. And I'm not a lawyer, but I can read it and be like, this is lunacy. This is fucking crazy.
So on that note, neither of us are lawyers. I don't know how much of this you're ready to talk about, but just as far as like the process and everything goes, obviously this was leaked, which is also, it's literally never happened before in history, as I understand it. So that's pretty wild too. But the way it's supposed to, this is his first draft of the opinion, right? And the way it normally would work is it goes around to the other justices and they give like notes and shit, in writing a script or something. You get notes back from the other ones and it gets adjusted. So this is the very first draft. It may have, if it had never leaked, it may have been different by the time it came out, but the intent of it is clear, and as long as he keeps the votes, the outcome would not be any different, right? But the document we're seeing is, that's his starting point for how this should be expressed.
Yeah, I think let's talk about the leak in a few minutes, but let's talk about, because the actual motivations for who leaked it, I think are interesting and not as straightforward as people might think. But as far as the insanity of the text itself, he goes full on. This is like, he's pulling from a conspiracy theory that Clarence Thomas has put out there before, but it says, quote, some such supporters have been motivated by a desire to suppress the size of the African-American population. It is beyond dispute that Roe has had a demographic effect. The high disproportionate percentage of aborted fetuses are black. So he's going with the abortion is racist
eugenics. Right. Yeah.
Which, in the context of who's saying this, he can sue me if he wants it. I'll just say this: Alito's a fucking racist. So, if you want to, if you need further proof these people don't believe anything they're saying, there you go. Right? It's like it's like utter horseshit to arrive at a conclusion. It's basically
it's kind of like, and this probably would have come up, but it's like one of the, like some of the shit he throws at the wall, like that one. Like it's almost like he's setting up, like, listen, really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help black people out because this has been a scourge amongst their people, and we're just trying to fix that. Me, Sam Alito, that I've got the black community's interest at heart. And sort of along the same lines, he talks a lot in here about how, like, the discourse surrounding Roe v. Wade has like ripped us apart as it's caused all this controversy and upheaval and everything over the years.
Mhm.
And sort of like the implication is like, so this will fix that. You know what I mean? Like this
It's
hugely unpopular decision that we're about to do, upending 50 years of reproductive rights progress should
mhm.
calm everybody down as far as that goes. So that would be nice.
Yeah. It's also like shows the sort of the bubble they travel in because abortion is overwhelmingly legal abortion is overwhelmingly popular. It's like
Mhm.
the electoral problem Democrats are going to have is that like most people don't feel that strongly about it, but also it's never been taken away like this before,
Right.
and and you're going to see the Republicans who can't keep their mouths shut, like who are in safe seats, like your Margie Taylor Greenes, openly campaigning for like a federal criminal abortion ban once they retake Congress in the fall. While the people who are in purple states are going to be trying to be telling them to shut the fuck up, and of course, they're not going to do that. But there's no reason to think they won't do it. They'll nuke the filibuster
Right.
and criminalize abortion nationwide.
Right.
It's like a nationwide
Because that's
heartbeat bill.
the because that's the thing is it's like this is just overturning Roe v. Wade, which makes it a federal. This would turn it back over to the states, right? So if your state is
Mhm.
has legal abortion, it'll still be legal there. But if you're one of the 22 or 20 something states that are set to outlaw it or dying to outlaw it already,
Mhm.
most of the red states, of course, then this decision would make it effectively illegal in those states, like as soon as it passed
Yeah,
or happened, right?
you got a bunch of states have already effectively outlawed it, like Texas and Mississippi, which is sort of the court cases that led to this decision. I think there was a Mississippi case that jump started this one, but there's like Texas has like a conditional abortion ban up until 6 weeks. I think Mississippi's is like hard and firm. But that's what prompted this decision. But like I think another 13 states have trigger laws that say like once the Roe v. Wade is gone, then abortion's automatically legal. So the minute the decision is handed down, there'll be
Right.
no recourse from in those states until hypothetically someone can outvote a heavily gerrymandered state. Like Democrats can only get 78% of the vote. They'll be able to retake the state legislature and overturn abortion ban. So good luck with that. The It's worth saying, like, to the degree there is any legal reasoning in this opinion, it's extremely dangerous not just to women but to everyone because the
Right.
whole argument is that basically the word abortion doesn't appear in the Constitution. Ergo, card says moops, right? Um,
Right. But there's
the-
plenty of things that aren't explicitly listed in the Constitution that have been
mhm.
litigated or codified or whatever the right word would be by the Supreme Court. So this could have uh, really unnerving precedent where those things are concerned. And I know that, and again, I'm not a lawyer either. I'm just getting this from reading
Mhm.
all the different analysis about it and everything. But this has massive implications in terms of privacy, laws that are related to privacy. This could undo a lot of that, which would be like privacy in your bedroom, i.e., gay marriage, but also like a couple's right to privacy where the method
Mhm.
of contraception is concerned and all that shit. All that entire
Yeah,
can of worms could be opened by this,
yeah,
even though he says in there, like, he says in there, this should not be taken to mean that it will impact other such cases, even though
mhm.
like the preceding 15 pages or whatever basically outlined the
Yeah.
opposite.
I mean, they did that in Bush v. Gore too. They said, "We're doing this, but obviously this doesn't have any precedent. Please don't apply this to any future cases." But just last year, Brett Kavanaugh was quoting Bush v. Gore in other election voting rights cases. So it's like it doesn't work. You can't put the springy snakes back in the can like that. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, what you're pointing to, let me quote from this piece. The obvious problem with this analysis is the Supreme Court has identified plenty of, quote, unenumerated rights, end quote, that lack deep roots in American history. Most recently, the court established the right of same-sex couples to be intimate. In Lawrence v. Texas, that was the case that Texas had a sodomy ban on the books. It was only ever
Mhm.
used against gay dudes. It was never
Right.
a guy getting a blowjob from his wife. By the way, blowjobs are also considered sodomy, but
Right.
definitionally, or putting in his wife's butt was never. No one was ever arrested for that. It was just dudes.
Mhm.
The other rights, the right for gay people to get married. That's Obergefell v. Hodges. That was from 2015. They're also, there's no interracial marriage isn't mentioned in the Constitution, and like
Right.
not to steal my own take that I wrote earlier, but like the the idea that there isn't a right to privacy in the Constitution is insane, considering the entire Bill of Rights is essentially 10 different ways to say mind your own fucking business.
Right. Yeah.
And the breathtaking cynicism of this thing, like in his opinion, he compares Roe to Plessy versus Ferguson, which is the famous case you've forgotten your eighth grade history, that codified separate but equal. Right, this guy named Plessy they were trying to make a move to a black car of a train, and he sued, saying this violates my 14th Amendment rights for equal protection. Now, Roe's also decided under the 14th Amendment, and Alito does pretzels to say that compare those two horrific cases the same, but he used the same logic as the wrongfully decided Plessy case to decide this case. It's that if the Constitution doesn't say a state can't do it, they can do it, right? No matter, the state has more rights. When they say states' rights, it's usually, people usually take it as like the states' rights versus the federal government, but these are states' rights versus like the rights of the people who live in the state. So it's essentially saying the state isn't the people who live in it. The state is some unknown power that controls the people in the state, and therefore they have to be given priority.
Yeah. He also, in addition to, making it clear that he's doing this for the benefit of the black community, he also implies he's just trying to help women out here. And including, there's a line in there that says that pregnancy is no longer the burden it once posed for women, because we got health insurance and better medicine and stuff now. So it's like, who really needs an abortion anymore? Like, you guys are going to be fine. Pregnancy, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's also that because you can leave your baby at the fire department. Does anybody ask the baby if they want to be left at the fire department? Like, is that like
yeah, it's so funny. It's like, listen, we're not saying they can't just get rid of it. Like, if somebody doesn't want a baby, yes, they have to have it, but then they can just do whatever with it. So it's fine, which like points to the whole thing with them that's always pissed me off the most. It's been pointed out a million times by a million other people, but the fact that, like, for everybody that's super, super pro-life and believes life begins at contraception, they also apparently believe that the value of said life ends at birth. You know what I mean? Like, of utmost importance that you must be born. After that, fuck you. Like, we don't give a shit what happens after that. And stuff like this, with him quoting the safe haven laws as like a justification, is as close as you can come to just outright saying that. You know what I mean? Just admitting that that is true.
Yeah, God intends women to be baby factories. So if you opt out of that, you're going against God's will. And the idea, like the idea of originalism or textualism or whatever you want to call his philosophy, to the extent he has one, is like the past he's trying to say, like abortion is like, he goes into this whole historical diatribe about abortion was not legal at the founding. That's not really true. It's just not true. Like abortion was not really, the Catholic Church didn't say it was a sin until like the 1860s. It wasn't like a contentious social issue in America until the 80s, when the moral majority rose up. The first state law trying to ban abortion in the U.S. was like passed in New York in 1820, and they couldn't find a single person who was ever prosecuted under it. The idea that like the founding fathers had a huge beef with abortion is insane, because they probably didn't even think about it, except to the extent that Ben Franklin liked to frequent a lot of prostitutes. But like the idea that they're trying to return this imagined past, that's like the whole reactionary movement. It's like, you imagine a time when things were awesome, then try to take everybody back there and drag everybody to hell in the process. It's also like promising idealized return to your nation's mythological past is essentially every fascist movement, the one through line. But here's the idea that like I said, like Alito tries that rhetorical trick, is like this opinion only applies to this, but like it can't just apply to this. Once you open this can of worms, so here's a law professor from the University of Texas. The majority can believe it's only eviscerating a right to an abortion in this draft, but the means by which it does so would open the door to similar attacks on other enumerated rights, both directly by attacking the underpinnings of those doctrines and indirectly by setting a precedent for such attack. Another professor said this is total gaslighting. He knows as well as anyone if these other rights, like Roe, rooted in the right to privacy, if Roe is imperiled because it's unenumerated, not, quote, rooted in our history and tradition, these other rights are also subject to challenge. And I just, like, literally, a guy who, an editor for VDare, which is a Nazi website which shares a lot of crossover staff, the Tucker Carlson show, posted on Gab, Brown v. Board is next. All right. They're not fucking hiding what they're up to.
Right.
I guess at least Alito bothered writing an opinion. They didn't do this in the shadow docket like usual, but I understand why they come up with intellectual justifications for what they want to do. They're just, like I said, they're just venting their spleen. They're just mad. They're mad they had to learn the word cishet. They're mad that their daughter might wants to go to prom with a Puerto Rican kid. They're just fucking mad. And it's like there's no like, but so we made fun of a guy a couple weeks ago who said the unspoken part loud, talking about like unenumerated rights in the Constitution and how the Supreme Court should approach this intellectual framework. And the guy was basically said, somebody asked him about Loving versus Virginia, which, you know, a Supreme Court case which forced states to legalize interracial marriage. And everyone laughed, but like that's on the table under this intellectual framework. The Supreme Court does not believe the federal government can protect people's individual rights when it bumps up against what a racist retrograde state wants to do. So we're about 2 years away from Clarence Thomas being forced to decide whether he wants to make his own marriage illegal. Do you know? It's like this is like ridiculously bleak.
It is. But let's talk about the leak a little bit because I agree with you that it is interesting. Because I'll just like my knee-jerk reaction was that someone, either one of the liberal justices or a clerk working for a liberal justice, was the source of this leak, and it was meant to like, you know, do what has happened, get everybody fired up and put it out there, and then the pushback and the PR and all that stuff is what I assumed. I've read that like one of the reasons that's never happened before is because this is like obviously a highly coveted position working in the Supreme Court, and to do that would be effectively to commit career suicide, among other reasons. But that's where my head immediately went. But apparently it's not necessarily the case, right? There's some other theories and scenarios.
So, all right. So my understanding of the Supreme Court works, okay, is they after oral arguments, they take sort of a straw poll, like hand vote for who's on which side of an issue. Right. And so the majority, once their majority is established, and this case had 5 votes, apparently, the 5 arch conservatives without John Roberts, the senior most judge in that 5 gets to pick who gets to write the opinion. It might just who wants to do it the most, who's the horniest for it, who's the most passionate, or who has the clearest, the most consensus opinion among the 5. And then that draft gets circulated, and then everyone else gets to write their dissents or concurrences, or, you know, or whatever. So politically within the Supreme Court, here's a good tea leaf reading of what might have been happening. All right, is the 5 have this opinion, they circulate it. John Roberts reads it and is horrified. So he's like, okay, I'm going to sign on to the majority so I can assign myself to write the opinion and make it milder and leave Roe in name only while still allowing statewide heartbeat bills or whatever. So hypothetically, if you want to lock in the 5, this strident opinion without John Roberts leaking it, and making it firm in the public imagination where everyone knows what's happening is a good way to keep that from happening. And also, like someone made this point, but the kind of libs who work for the Supreme Court, clerk for the Supreme Court, these are like centrist institutionalists. Like they're not; these aren't activists. These are people who want to like work at white shoe Wall Street law firms and maybe do a little like pro bono environmental law on the side once they made their millions. Conservatives, you're not risking your career doing this. You will end up hosting a show on Fox News if you get caught. Just like Oliver North got out of prison for Iran-Contra and became a right-wing.
I don't know, Mark. They're pretty upset about this leak. Okay, that's the other thing that's kind of funny about it is that the conservative media, Fox News, and them have been apoplectic at this news as well, but only because of the leak. They're like, no, the real problem here is that some snitch in the halls of Supreme Court leaked this information, undermining the integrity of the entire institution. I saw one conservative pundit say that January 6th pales in comparison to these actions, and it's, quote, not even close. But they're very upset over the leak, and it's like, and well, you know why. You put it in the outline, but
they've secured one of the biggest conservative legal victories in the history of the country, or at least in the past century. And it's a dog chasing the car. They finally caught it. It's a 40-year
Right.
legal project. They've won, but now they still get to play the victim.
Which is their favorite thing, the unending persecution. It's pretty impressive,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, that even in this scenario, like you said, one of the biggest victories they've ever attempted. They've been decades in the making, and they've still found a way to be the victims in this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this whole movement, like they like to pretend like the bow tie people are different from the QAnon psychos, but they're not. It's all the same. They think all the same things. The difference is whether they can put like a veneer of Ivy League bullshit on it. But what they all think, and this is the interview with Margie Taylor Greene from like 2 or 3 days ago, this is what they all think, and this will serve as our palate cleanser transition to some dumbasses.
It's whispered softly and gently into your ears and into your soul. And he tells you it's okay. And he says it's just this one thing. You're just going to get it done, get it over with. And then he tells you a promise. He promises you all these dreams that you have in your heart. And that's how Satan sells a sin. And that's how he sells abortion. He tells a woman that all you have to do is you're just going to go to this clinic, just going to get it over with, And then you're going to, that guy, he's going to stay with you. That boyfriend or the guy, whoever he is, he's going to marry you, sweep you off your feet. Or
isn't the idea that the man had to marry you if you kept the baby?
That's what I was like. Well, that's what I always heard. It's literally the exact opposite. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. All right.
Yeah.
Before we get to our guests, we want to at least have a little bit of dumbassery on the show because this is the Skews after all. So, Matt, let's do the Daily Dumbass. Hit that graphic, please. Whenever you got it. Tonight's DD is Antifa for not just bringing cans of V8 to hurl instead of kicking it old school and bringing actual vegetation, apparently. Donald Trump has said that he reportedly feared for his life because of the prospect of being pelted with, quote, very dangerous fruit at his rallies, Mark. Not just your garden variety fruit, am I right? This is particularly dangerous and violent fruit people are going to hurl at Donald Trump.
Yeah, violent fruit, like the like not the good fruit, like from the VeggieTales. But so for the background of this, I don't know if you remember in 2015, Trump told people at his rallies to beat up protesters and he'd pay their legal bills. Yes. So a group of those protesters filed a lawsuit, and it's been stuck in. Trump did his usual delaying tactics, so it didn't move forward until recently, and he sat for a deposition, which produced all these quotes, and they are gold. Former President Donald Trump said he feared protesters would hit him with tomatoes, pineapples, and other very dangerous fruit at his campaign rallies, including in a sworn deposition that, quote, you can be killed if that happens. Now, I think we all knew that Trump wasn't a huge fan of fruits and vegetables, but this is taking it too far. I wanted to have people be ready because we were put on alert they were going to do fruit, Trump said in October 21.
Gonna do the fruit.
Gonna do the fruit.
Doing the fruit, Mr. President.
He added that, quote, tomatoes are bad, end quote, and that, quote, some fruit is a lot worse. Because if that happens, you could be killed if that happens. To stop somebody from throwing pineapples, tomatoes, bananas, stuff like that, yeah, it's dangerous stuff. Now, I do want to go on record that I'd much rather be hit with a banana than a pineapple.
Sure.
But the idea that someone's going to assassinate the future president by launching a pineapple from a trebuchet just fucking kills me.
If he became the first president to be assassinated via fruit, I mean, good Lord, what more apt headline for the times we live in. But yeah, and I don't know. I feel like if I have to get hit with a fruit, I don't think tomatoes near the top of the list of ones. You know what I mean? Any kind of melons, like you said, pineapple. I mean, tomatoes, the standard fruit to be hurled in protest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Many people have walked away from tomato abuse.
Yeah. The whole reason they would hand out tomatoes to throw at performers during those like medieval is the whole point is the tomatoes didn't hurt.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like it'll be fine to hit the magician with this, you know.
Yeah. They did resolve one age-old question though, Trey, and that is the tomato a vegetable? This is a court proceeding. At another point, the lawyers took a few moments to discuss whether tomato is a fruit. A tomato is a fruit after all, I guess, Dichter said. That's one of the lawyers. And you know what? Trump interjected. It has seeds, Jeffrey Goldman, a lawyer for Trump, confirmed. It's worse than tomato. It's other things also, Trump continued. But tomato, when they start doing that stuff, it's very dangerous. There was an alert out that day. So,
Mater alert.
Mater alert.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one more thing, because there is something else going on today. The infamous Ohio Senate primary is going down. Polls are closed. I believe we've covered it a lot on here. And at last glance, J.D. Vance was in the lead. I believe it's closing a little bit, but he has the lead. But even if he wins, J.D. will never be done taking L's, even from Daddy. Let's see this clip here.
That's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for one race. You know, we've endorsed Dr. Oz. We've endorsed JP, right? JD Mandel, and he's doing great.
J.D. Mandel.
Yeah. Another thing, a humiliating thing that came out from that primary this week is like, so there was the battle to get the Trump endorsement between Josh Mandel and JD, whose name Trump just matched up there. The Club for Growth guy, who is a Republican like tax goon, has been a big supporter of Mandel and was lobbying for for Trump's endorsement for him. But Tucker Carlson's apparently the one who put the thumb on the scale for JD. He called up Trump and told him that this guy, his name's McIntosh, is into some weird sex shit, and that's what basically swayed it, was that McIntosh is a pervert. And if you remember, the only reason Josh Mandel didn't get the endorsement is because someone else told him other rumors about Josh Mandel being a pervert.
Right.
So these people cannot. I'm glad this primary is over because they cannot keep coming up with made up sex rumors at this rate. They're going to run out.
Yeah, more weird sex undertones in this Senate primary than in most that I can remember. But yeah, okay, so we'll see. JD will pull it out probably. Who knows what will happen after that? But we'll keep track of it. But I say let's go ahead and get to our guests. Our guest tonight was born and raised in Nashville. She spent nearly 14 years as a civil servant and then co-founded Stand Up Nashville, a nonprofit community organization that fights for working families. She has seen firsthand how the political and economic system is rigged against working families who've spent their lives playing by the rules. She has organized diverse coalitions and already delivered for Tennessee, and now she's ready to take the fight to Congress and represent Tennessee's 7th District. Everybody please welcome Odessa Kelly to the program. Let's get Odessa in here. Yeah, hey, hello. Hey, Odessa, how you doing?
I am well. How y'all doing? Thank you for having me.
Good.
Yeah,
thank you for being here.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, and we're going to get to your campaign, your goals, and what you want to do in my home state of Tennessee there. But I guess to begin with, just how you feeling today? Where you at on everything?
I'm frustrated, you know, as an organizer. Is anyone surprised? You know, they've been working up to this point for a good minute. You know, I think I've been saying constantly today to people is worth repeating again. You know, what happened yesterday or what could possibly happen in late June is not symbolic of this country. It's just more proof, you know, that we got to get these people in leadership out of office. There needs to be more people that have a shared experience of what 99% of us go through, you know, on a daily basis. You know, we got to be more responsible with our vote and who we put in these positions to make these things happen.
So on that note, I've wondered, what do you think that this whole thing will serve as any kind of motivating factor for the left or for Democrats or whatever, where the midterms are concerned? I feel like there's been people are worried that, you know, voters on the left might not be sufficiently motivated or not as much as those on the right in these midterms. They might be a little discouraged or whatever. And I've wondered if something like this happening could maybe stoke a fire under people, or is that just wishful thinking? Like, do you think we might actually have some of that?
I'm hoping, you know, from what I've seen so far, it looks like as though it's energizing our base again and reminding them that, you know, you got to be all in midterms and presidential elections, local elections. I hope everyone went out and voted today. You know, if you had an election like we did here, at every single last level, you know, a judge's race is just as important as the presidential. And I think that's showing up, you know, given what happened yesterday.
Odessa, I watched an interview you did with the Tennessee Holler this morning, and I really enjoyed it. You made a couple of really good points, and I thought that, like, you simply said it's on us, which I resonated with me because it's like no one's coming to save us. You know, it's like the idea that we just root online and then someone else is supposed to go do stuff is silly and damaging. And even though all we're doing right here is complaining online, you made a good point. I thought also when another person brought the idea of like sort of a general strike by women, and obviously that would be effective. But you made the point that people can't afford to not go to work, and that's part of the reason our economy is structured the way it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons also why I'm running for office. You got to have more people who know the intersectionality and where like our urgencies are, and then like where we're hurting at. A strike would be great, but if you want a huge strike, you got to really think about it. Can people afford to take off of work right now? What type of repercussions will come? A strike can last 1 to 30 days, and part of a woman's rights or reproductive rights is also poverty, or working. It's class warfare. Don't get distracted by a lot of the surface issues. You really need to look what's undergirding it, what's under it, and follow the money trail, because it always ends up being about money, or it ends up about keeping us in positions, black or white, because there's a lot of people in white rural Tennessee. They live in check to check just like everybody else and doing the best that they can to make it. And they put these things in place to keep us from actually focusing on the bigger issues that we have here. There's been a corporate takeover of Middle Tennessee, and it's oppressing everyone here. We should be more focused and have the energy of focusing on that than having to deal with silly things that we have to deal with now, even though this is a serious issue.
Yeah.
Right. It's like effectively this decision will make it just illegal for poor people more so than anyone else. Rich people still have any means necessary to get an abortion if they want one. So when you say it's class warfare, I totally agree with you on that front. Can you elaborate some on the corporate takeover in Tennessee that you're talking about and the effects of it?
Absolutely. You're right on point. Like this ain't about left or right. This is about people and what we actually need to see here. Whether you live, I'm from the hood in East Nashville, whether you live in an urban city, a metropolitanized area like I live in, whether you're out in the sticks, you're in the hollers, in the rural area, we've got to band together and think about the things that are really impacting our lives across, every facet. You got Amazon here. You got other big corporations that are moving to Middle Tennessee. And the reason they're moving here is because we've had several governors, including the one now, Bill Lee, yelling at the top of the hill, move your companies to Tennessee. We have the largest percentage of people with low wage. We have the largest percentage of population with low wage jobs. And that's what he's saying. He was like, come here, our people will work for nothing, or move here and move everybody here from your company here as well, because we don't have a state tax and it just pushes us out. Nashville is full. And as you see, some of the rural areas in Middle Tennessee are becoming full as well, and it's not okay. We have the right to live the best quality of life that we can. Those who are teachers, social workers, people who pick up our trash, they make Tennessee.
You've been fighting this battle for a long time. I mean, it's kind of your whole thing with your organization. I know I read something about when they were going to build the soccer stadium with public funding, like $300 million almost or something like that. You helped organize a pushback on that and force them to use some of that to actually help regular people instead of just build a billionaire's stadium. Is that accurate? Like you've been on the front lines of this for a long time, not just since you decided to run for office.
Hell yeah, absolutely. I come with receipts, I'm not a talkivist, I walk the walk. Absolutely. We're the reason any of you that like soccer, that soccer is in Nashville. And we did that as a community together. I'm tired of development coming into Tennessee and telling us what to do. Like we don't have a say in the places. It's our birthright to be here, And so what happened back in 2017 is 3 huge things. The city employees for like the umpteenth time in a row, including me, we were told that we couldn't have a cost of living raise. Now, y'all know what it is like in Nashville. It's hard. It's one of the fastest growing cities for the past 10 years. Price keeps going up for housing and everything else, right? And so reason why they said they couldn't give it to us, the city didn't have no money. Next thing that happened is that our superintendent at the time, he just asked for adequate pot of money so he can fix some, like maintenance issues in the school system, nothing absorbing it. They said, no, we ain't got the money, can't do it. 2017, close toward the end of the year, they said, we're going to close our public hospital. It's where a lot of our energy, the people who, live in check to check, who may not be able to afford healthcare because it's ridiculous here, they go there. And then I heard on the radio as I'm taking my kids, to school, and I'm talking to them about accountability, like get your backpack, I already have it ready to go, that we got $275 million to build a soccer stadium.
Right.
Like, whose priorities is out of whack? I should be yelling. And at that point, that's when me and so many other people, elected officials, clergy, people got together and was like, that's not going to happen here. If you're going to build a soccer stadium, you're going to build it with jobs that's $15.50 an hour. You're going to make sure you put Nashville people to work. We don't want to have any more issues on construction jobs. We need a daycare in there for the workers and everyone else and so on. It's like, how do we really authentically do things for the people who are in these communities, just making it a playground for the rich?
The thing you quoted Bill Lee, I'm sure you're paraphrasing, but Bill Lee saying our workers are paid shit, come bring your company here, is extremely funny to me, because throughout history, the way governors have sold people and companies moving in is like, we're going to get good paying jobs. And instead of pitching the company to the people like that, he's pitching the people to the company saying they won't even ask for more and they can't do anything about it. Fuck them. It's like,
oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just him. It's been other governors in the past. This has just been a precedent, right? And it's not only just been Republicans. Before I was running against Republican Mark Lee, I was running against a Democrat, Jim Cooper. What it is that we have terrible people, and regardless of the side of the aisle that they're on, who claim that they represent working class people, that they claim to be about. It's just lip service. All they care about is money and their bottom line. Majority of people, us who are living check to check, we're not in debt because we bought a yacht. We in debt because we want our kid to go to daycare.
Yeah.
We in debt because we paid all our bills on time, and then a hiccup came up and we had a tire. We blew out a tire. We ever bought a set of tires that wasn't discounted. That's $600-$700, and that will send you in debt and put you behind. That's what we're talking about, And so what has happened is that you have a lot of people who are out here and they have these buzzwords. So what they're doing is actually lying to you in your face. Amazon came here and said they had 5,000 jobs. I want someone to go look. Ask them how many Nashvillians, residents, people who've been here longer than, last 5 or 10 years actually got them jobs. Maybe one or two, one diversity hire. They put out there, look, we love Black people. Oracle doing the exact same thing, right? Yeah. And then what they're doing is they're moving hordes of people here from Seattle and all of the other tech valleys, and not putting any emphasis into the workforce training that we need or all the other ancillary jobs where people who, you shouldn't get punished for not going to college or not having a huge fancy degree. If you're willing to work and put in a good hard day of work, you should be able to have the best quality of life that you want to live. And that's not happening here in any other urban metropolitanized area around the country.
Right. Yeah, I've had conversations with conservatives before where what you just alluded to, where, you'll ask them, do you believe in this country, a country that purports to be the greatest country on earth, that a person who works a full-time job should be able to support a family, right? Regardless what the job is. If they're working hard 40 hours a week, they should be able to support a family. And most of them, in my experience, will tell you, yes, I do. And then you ask, well, how come so many of them cannot? That's just objectively untrue for so many people in this country because of wages and so many other factors. And then they'll usually start pulling on the typical threads of well, I'd just like to see that person's budget. What are they really spending their money on? You know what I mean? They've got this thing in their head that poor people or working class people, they just blow all their money and then kick their feet up or something.
Right.
Everybody who's ever lived it knows, like you just said, it's that any extra money you get has to go towards a new fan belt or whatever.
Exactly.
It's very expensive to be poor, and it's also very difficult, and people work very hard. And so it's always really, really pissed me off that they spin it into this whole well, they're lazy and irresponsible. And that's really what the problem is. If they were more responsible, then, they would be able to have a decent life working full time, that's just not true. None of that is true.
Absolutely. And it's not just the poor. It is people like me and you. I got a degree, and right. Before I became an activist and before I ran for office, the reason I ended up here is because I was working for the city. I worked for Metro Parks and Recreation. The part of government people are actually happy to see. Hell, I was good at running Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. We had basketball teams, giving people something to do. I hung out with the seniors during the day, learned how to play spades and, pinochle and everything else, giving back to the community. And I could have retired on that job. But here I am doing a job that the city and the people, it says, deemed important, went back and got my master's, yet I'm living check to check. Hell, I became an activist and runner out of desperation for my own life. I wanted to be able to buy a house for my own children. I got tired of being on the front lines of poverty and seeing parents with uniforms on, Trey and y'all, they had uniforms on, coming in between 2-3 jobs to get a food box. We was connected to a school. I got teachers texting me, can you put me a food box to the side? There's something fundamentally wrong with the systems that we have when teachers, got to call me, people who've been working 2 or 3 jobs, and ask me to put a food box to the side. It ain't right, and we got to fix it.
You have I watched a couple of your campaign ads. And I can't remember the exact slogan, but is it from the city to the holler or something like that when you talk about coalitions in your district?
Yes, and a reason being is, I wanted to make sure it's like, I can be real with everyone here. It's like, how do you appeal to everyone? I'm a 6 foot tall, very pretty Black woman, rocking some locks, and I think sometimes people just assume things about you, and it's like, how can our people actually hear me? I'm called the radical left for what? Because I don't want people to die in the cold. I won't make sure people ain't going hungry,
Right.
I don't think that Bill Lee or any of them, like the Margie Taylor Greene was playing earlier, they fake being Christians. There's no way in the world they can be, they try to cherry pick things out of the Bible, and that's like the most unchristian thing you can do. They need to go read Leviticus again and understand why the good Lord got mad at the priest.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it last week, but Margie Taylor Greene literally did an even interview last week where she said that helping refugees was unchristian. It's like, oh God. I mean, what Bible you read?
Absolutely. My opponent text today, like he's doubling down that of course they're doing the right thing because we got to protect the vulnerable. He don't know. He is a rich man from West Point who hides behind the fact that he's a veteran and tries to hide behind things that he knows nothing about. I'm from a vulnerable community. I have 3 different identifications that make me vulnerable. He has no idea who the vulnerable is, and we need to make sure that we're not separated by these surface things and really think about what the issues are going to impact our life and move on.
I want to talk about your opponent. I know you don't have to say anything because I know you got to like be not poll tested because you're obviously not poll tested, but like I know you got to be couth, but he sucks. But I wanted to talk about your district for a second. So you're running for the Tennessee 7th, right?
Yes, brand new district.
I was reading your website last night, and I just want to say I love you. You're awesome. But you're in a real uphill fight. The one reason I want to bring up the city of the holler, like you're focused on working class solidarity, which I think is really important. I wish people would stop seeing things through a lens other than materialism, because in a sense everything goes back to that first. But the district went for Trump like over Biden 66-31 in 2020, I think, and it's Marshall Blackburn's old district. So I just want to point out how tough and determined you are, because you're definitely running uphill. But I love your platform. It's very brave, and you're a very blunt and honest person, which we always like around here.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I think that we got to get every vote that we possibly can, but the numbers are actually there. I don't know what the Republicans was thinking when they was building these new districts. I think they were so busy on trying to gerrymander, parts of Franklin, and what we built now is the new District 5. They also forgot about all the Black people that live in North Nashville. They forgot about all the new progressives that have moved in downtown Nashville. That is 120,000 additional, for sure, progressive or Democratic votes that are now in this district. Between that, you got Clarksville, last 4 cycles. They have elected Democratic mayor and state rep, about 70,000 out of Franklin. Y'all, we got the numbers to do this. What we need is people like you to come out and vote, and to tell your neighbor to vote, and vote on your values and what you actually want to see change in, not just for some label and some guy here just be giving you lip service and absolutely no type of constituency services whatsoever.
Yeah.
On that note, I mean, what can tell people about your campaign, what people can do to help out if they're so inclined? Because I know, we were talking earlier about the corporate overlords and the reality of it. And there's a lot of even Democrats who are corporate pawns, and we all know that. But the other side of that is they have backing from said corporate overlords, big money in politics, and the devastating effects it's had on so many things that affect regular people. And somebody like you pushing back against that, extremely vital. So, how can people support?
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So you can go to our website. That is odessaforcongress.com. You can sign up to be a volunteer. We can use all the help. I'm a union person. And what we do better than anyone is that we knock doors. and we're going to be out. We've already been out all over the district knocking doors. Please come help, give us some tips about where we should go and events that we should go to, and donate. In the last 60 days, we want to be able to go tit for tat. He can pull, $1 million out of his pocket. I can't do that. I'm a working class individual, but please donate so that we can be on TV as well and go tit for tat with this person and make sure that we can do everything that we possibly can. Because it's not about just me as well in this position. It's about when you running for Congress, you got to understand how to be a team player. And by the team player it's like, what barriers can I move out the way for the people that want to be good judges here, for the people that want to be good state representatives, and for our local officials. And my job in Congress is to move every barrier out of the highway so that we can build the type of Tennessee that we want to build. So this is about everyone that's down ballot as well, that's fighting for good people. So donate to our campaign so we can say that we did everything that we possibly can do, and to send a message. We don't give a damn about you gerrymandering in these districts. We here to stay. Tennessee is our state, and we're going to fight for it to the last breath in our body.
That's awesome.
Ready to run through a wall over here. I'll tell you what, you got me fired up. I'm so glad you came on. So glad you're doing what you're doing. And thank you very much, Odessa. Odessa Kelly, everybody.
Thank you, Odessa.
All right. Yeah, it was she's great. That's awesome.
I'm glad. I do want to talk about while we get ready to pull up some comments. I want to talk about her opponent for a second. I'm glad we can let her go so she doesn't have to sit here and listen to be really rude about, because you're supposed to be couth in politics. We don't have to be.
Right.
So she's running against Margie Greene, who is an Army veteran and became a doctor and started a hospital management company. So he's pretty rich. He also, here's the main thing: Trump nominated him to be secretary for the Army. He was Trump's second nominee. The first one couldn't pass the financial background check. Essentially, couldn't figure out a way to divest enough because he was some rich guy with some weird investments. But Greene also was forced to pull out because here's some things he said. If you poll the psychiatrist, they're going to tell you that transgender is a disease. He supported a state law that limited access to public restrooms for transgender people to those matching their legal sex, not their gender identity. So he's for establishing a general inspection force. And he told internet talk radio show host C.J. Porter that he viewed his support of that law as part of his duty as a state senator to quote, crush evil. Did you know that state senators take an oath to crush evil, Trey? I didn't know that.
No, like with Satan in particular, they got to worry about Satan. They got to keep their eyes on him.
Yeah. He also said this is just a funny example of how he's a dumbass. I mean, he went past medical school in West Point, so maybe he's not a dumbass about everything. But Greene also said if school districts, quote, want to have a bathroom that's separate for all of the guys or gals with question marks, but we're concerned, quote, the AFL-CIO is going to sue you while I got your back. I got to assume he means the ACLU there.
Yeah.
And not the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, because they really don't have a stake in the whole transgender fight. But
yeah. All right. Well, Matt, if you want to put some questions and comments up there for us, a lot of stuff going on. Thanks again to Odessa. She was wonderful. And I don't know. Wonder how JD's doing. Wonder if he's hanging in there.
Oh yeah, give us a JD update, Matt.
We're asking Matt. Let's see here. How would I look for that? Ohio primary. Senate primary results.
Matt had a graphic. It was refreshing in the pre-show.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know.
It says Vance at 29, 20% of the vote in, according to CNN. Vance is at 29%, and Mandel is at 23. Yeah, I don't know. It's not showing the other voters for whatever other candidates.
Mark, so help me out with the end of this here. Crystal Fitzhugh on Facebook says, we must seek out opportunities to volunteer and donate in every way possible to help ourselves in the midterm. And then does that say come over and over again?
I think it's a blue wave and a flag.
Okay. What's the UM?
What? I don't see. You must be.
Oh,
I see
you
emojis.
See a flag?
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
On my screen, it shows up as a blue wave and American
hilariously, I don't know if it's only my screen or if it's different. I'm on PC or whatever, but on my screen, those emojis, the wave is shaped like a C, and then instead of an emoji, it's UM. So it looks like come.
Okay.
Written over and over again.
Come.
Yeah, come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that's cool. I'm all for it. Lori Cultus says small dollar donations matter. Yes, they do. The only way you can really compete with, if you're telling the corporations to go fuck themselves and whatnot, because that's where most of the war chest comes from. It's one that it's like, it just really sucks how all the culture war shit, it's really upsetting, obviously, and everything, but how like pretty much every single bit of it always just comes back to money at the end of the day. Like it all really is just about money. And part of that is, if you're not the party of big money, because you need money to compete, and that makes it even harder to do so. So yeah, small donations do matter.
Yeah, small dollar donations are kind of everything right now. I mean, one of the reasons Trump has a huge war chest is because he gets small dollar donations and sells, nickels with his face on it for $100 and shit. So, Bernie got all his money off small dollar donations. So does AOC, and so do a lot of people. And like, I would say, like, everybody's fired up and wants to donate places right now. I would say that like, seek out the people who aren't national stars. That like say, don't just give all your money to the. I hope Marcus Flowers beats Margie Taylor Greene, but don't just give all your money to him because he, I think, already has enough money. Find some underfunded races, state senators, and so forth. Because like we always bitch about how old the Democrats are, but they don't have a bench. They haven't been developing a talent supply. It's like a major league team with no farm system. There just aren't people coming. I want people like Odessa to be pushed up, and like people that really care, people want to fight for stuff and have a material stake in things. But you got to get them. You got to get them some political experience, name recognition, and start building them up. Or we're just going to be stuck here.
Right. Yeah. Jim Gray on Facebook says, if you want to confirm your voter registration and polling location, go to vote.gov. You can also register there too. Thank you for the information there, Jim. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about what I asked Odessa as far as like the midterms go and whatever? Is that just like wishful thinking, or like do you think? Because I feel like there has been, we're deflated, right? It's been sort of they're fired up. They're all mad at Joe Biden for everything. We've had to sit here and watch Manchin and Sinema just fuck everything up, and everything keeps not happening. And January 6th keeps getting not fucking prosecuted, and so on and so forth. And so we on the left are deflated, whereas they're fired up. Midterms tend to swing back in the other direction. Anyway, it's all recipe for disaster. Do you think this whole thing could have any kind of effect to the contrary where that is concerned?
Well, I don't know whether people can be fired up or discouraged. Well, the one effect of this is you might see some swing voters who are contributing to like a R+7 environment for the midterms, like swing back the other way because they're suburban, upper middle class people who just like, we're mad about schools being closed and masks. We're not going to be mad about this. You know what I'm saying? So like that could sway some votes. But as far as the actual Democratic base, I don't know whether people are discouraged or going to be fired up for this because it's like, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, because like Biden gave a pretty disappointing milquetoast statement about how you just got to vote this fall. Elizabeth Warren gave a pretty fiery, impassioned speech as she was like sprinting across a lawn that really resonated with people. Chuck Schumer actually came out fairly fired up for Chuck Schumer and talked about how he's going to put a bill on the floor to codify Roe as federal law, which would nullify the Supreme Court decision. He doesn't have the votes, but I don't think, because you got to get 60 if you're not going to nuke the filibuster. And Manchin already said he won't nuke the filibuster for this. There could be something weird happen because I know Murkowski and Collins are kind of humiliated right now.
Right.
Maybe get a 50th vote for a one-time modification of the filibuster from them for this specific bill, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that was like a possibility because I know, especially where Collins is concerned, if it could, if that could factor into it or something.
He's got to put pressure. Yeah.
So looks like JD's going to pull it off. Looks like.
Was 31% of the vote in, and he's up 29-23. Yeah, Dave Washington's calling it. Usually
I've seen enough. JD Vance wins the Republican nomination and will face Tim Ryan in the fall. All right. Well, I wonder if like the antics and the literal dick measuring and papaw fighting and all that stuff, obviously some of that's going to fall by the wayside now that the Republican primary is over, but I just wonder how this race is going to go now. Tim Ryan, it never struck me as, much of a circus act type of guy, but I just, there's still some more potential for absurdity in this race, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get, I mean, like the amount of stuff JD said that should make for a bunch of really damning TV ads is going to, I mean, they could just run Josh Mandel's ads and that should sink him, but I don't know. But like, it's like there was a rally today he did with Matt Gaetz and defended Matt Gaetz. They asked him, do you think it's good to be a good look to be campaigning with a guy who's accused of child sex trafficking? And JD pivoted to saying a lot of federal investigations are the result of political corruption, essentially saying that JD is being framed for being a child sex trafficker. And again, that's going to be hung around his neck if Gaetz is indicted between now and Election Day, right? So, yeah.
Well-being and health on YouTube says, I just confirmed my vote registration. Good to go. All right, good to hear it. Because we didn't do some of the normal stuff up top. Like and subscribe, everybody. Thanks for watching tonight, and like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff helps us out. If you're listening to the podcast, leave a 5-star review. That'd be super cool. Also, I didn't do these up top. If you're vaccinated and want to see me live, I'm doing solo shows this summer. And you can go to TreyCrowder.com. We've added a couple more today. So we got some Jersey and New Hampshire stuff going on. That'll be added on there pretty soon. And yeah, we're adding new dates all the time. It's going to be fun. Come and see me. Secondly, if you like the show and want to support us, you can do so on Patreon, $5 a month. You get full-length bonus episodes like the one we did last week on big data, hooking up with the Lord to get Jesus into all your business, and other fun stuff as well. We're going to do another one this week. We're having fun with it. And again, you can support the show in that fashion and get some more Skews for your trouble. weeklyskews.com/more, or just look me up on Patreon, sign up on the Skews tier. So yeah, got the business out of the way a little bit late in the game, comparatively speaking, but at least I remembered to do it. Yeah, I don't know. It's, things aren't great, Mark. You heard it here last, everybody. Things are not great.
Trey, did you think the founding fathers, when they thought about the Constitution establishing a form of government, they thought that what they were doing was setting it up so our sex lives would be dictated by a bunch of people, even when they were young enough to fuck, probably wore dress socks when they did it?
No, I do not. Also, I'm going to read that thing because I don't think you read it earlier. An apocryphal quote, I guess you found on the internet, says in 1787 there were a sizable block of delegates who were opposed to the Bill of Rights. One member of the Georgia delegation had to stay by way of opposition and said, if we list the set of rights, some fools in the future are going to claim that people are entitled only to those rights enumerated and no more, no others. So
yeah, that no one actually said that. It may, I'm not sure the progeny of it. I think it might have originated in a West Wing episode, but the sentiment is correct, I think.
Okay, so that's an Aaron Sorkin quote. All right.
Yeah. But people think it's real. But I do agree with the actual takeaway. But like, if you want to know what the founding fathers actually fought, people never talk about the Ninth Amendment, Trey.
Mm-hmm.
Never. No one brings up the Ninth Amendment. You want to know what the Ninth Amendment says? The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. It's literally saying if we just because we didn't write something down doesn't mean people don't have this right. Yeah,
that's in there.
Yes, and no one ever fucking points to it. Exactly. Why was Roe decided under the 14th Amendment? It's like the son of the Ninth Amendment. It says we can do whatever we want if we decide people have the right.
It's also just weird. Matthew Kenyon on Facebook says, can't wait to see you in KC, Trey. Me neither. Going to get some of that barbecue. It's going to be a good time. Thank you, Matthew. It's also just weird. It's like he talks about stuff about it's not rooted in history. And it's like, it's such a weird thing to say to me because it's like the world changes. Things change. It's like we can't have any kind of laws that aren't based on something from 200 something. Like that's some straight up Bible shit, which I guess makes sense. Considering what we're talking about here. But it's like
Congress can't regulate high-speed trains because they're not in the
right. Exactly. Fucking
you can't have a labradoodle because labradoodles didn't exist in 1787.
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's all so ridiculous. But thank you all for joining us and listening to us bitch about it. We hope you're hanging in there. TreyCrowder.com, weeklyskews.com/more for the Patreon. Like, subscribe, share, retweet, all that good stuff. We'll see y'all next week. See you. Love you. Bye.